You are laughing. School fees. You will be asked to repeat because if you take part in your examination or if you do your assignment, your assignment will not be marked. And because this year we take the assignment, I'm going to give you very serious. If you don't pay your school fees, your assignment will not be marked. So how can you be promoted? It means you have to repeat level 200. So it's a warning to all of you. Those who have decided they won't pay. If you don't pay, you pay dearly for it. I want us to admit to more people.
Sir, please, when is our deadline?
Pardon?
Sir, our deadline.
The assignment, the deadline is I think Wednesday.
You got it.
You've seen it.
No, sir. So I'm even asking about the school fees.
School fees. Hello. All right. The next topic I want us to treat is design of epidemiological studies. Design of epidemiological studies. And when we talk about epidemiological studies, we are talking about cross-sectional studies, longitudinal studies, and cohort studies. This one is very, very important.
Sir,
So,
please.
hello.
Hello, sir. Sir, can you repeat again? You said the cross section.
We have cross-sectional studies.
Study.
We have longitudinal studies.
Okay, yes, sir.
We have cohort studies.
Pardon, sir.
Cohort.
Pardon.
H2RT. Cohort.
Okay, yes, sir.
We
Yes,
have
sir.
case control studies.
Okay, yes, sir.
William.
Okay.
Case control studies. Okay, now let's start with cross-sectional studies. In a cross-sectional study, one, a sample or samples drawn from the relevant population and studied ones. In other words, C, cross-sectional, it measures prevalence of a disease. In other words, you take a sample or samples from a relevant population and study it once. And the outcome will be prevalence of the disease. For instance, let's take, say you want to find out how many people are having tuberculosis in Legon campus. So what we do is we take sputum smears from all the students. So we take 1 month and collect sputum smear from every student And then when we get the results, what we have got is what we call prevalence rate. Because we do it once, and that is cross-sectional study. And it describes the characteristics of a population at one time. In other words, when you find out that we have prevalence and incidence. Incidence measures new cases, but prevalence is once. So the data collected is from people who are similar in all variables, except the one variable under study. In other words, if you go to the campus and they are all students, they all have one variable, they are all students. And so when you get the results, you can see that the prevalence rate of, say, tuberculosis among Legon students is 0.2%, something like that. But when we talk about, say, incidence is new cases. In other words, incidence occurs over a period of time. We'll come to that, but we are now talking about cross-sectional study. It's useful for hypothesis generation, but not generally for hypothesis testing. In other words, you can use data from cross-sectional studies to advance a hypothesis, but you can't use it to prove. In other words, let's say this Legon thing too. You took smear of all the students, and you got, say, tuberculosis rate of 0.5%. Okay, in that case, you can say that tuberculosis is not common among university students. That can be your hypothesis. Or you can say tuberculosis is common among students. Then you have to prove. So in order, if you want to prove, then you have to do another study. And that is longitudinal studies. We'll come to that one. So the cross-sectional study again compares groups in terms of their current health and exposure status and assess their similarities. It's very easy to conduct, and the disadvantage is that it cannot be inferred. In other words, if you go to the hospital and collect all the OPDs, and you want to find out how many people got diarrhea in January, say Legon Hospital, and you get it, is the prevalence of malaria in January. That's all. And if you do it for, say, January, and you go and do it again for June, and do it again for December, and you find that it's rising, then you can say that you can advance a hypothesis that diarrhea increases as the months go on. This is your hypothesis. And then you want to test whether it's true or not, then you do longitudinal studies. So our next study is longitudinal studies. We finished with the cross-sectional study, and I said it measures prevalence. So longitudinal studies. It focuses on identifying putative causes for an illness. And the primary mission is hypothesis testing. It's used for testing hypothesis. In other words, when you use cross-sectional studies to advance a hypothesis, then you use longitudinal studies to test whether it's true or not. And take measure of the same random at multiple time points. It's the easiest way to assess the effect of a naturally occurring event. It is expensive and difficult to do. And it's difficult to find samples. Participants frequently leave the study, hence become less representative with successive assessments. Okay, the third one we are going to consider is experimental, analytic, epidemiological, and clinical trials. Experimental, analytic, epidemiological, and clinical trials. They can provide rigorous tests for presumed causal associations. Now, let's talk about cohort study. What is a cohort study? We commonly call it what will happen to me. You study a group of people with different levels of exposure and assess what happens to their health over time. In other words, for instance, it is said that those who work in asbestos factories in the long run develop asbestosis and cancer of the lungs. So in a cohort study, we are going to start with people who are exposed to asbestosis, those working in asbestos factory, and those who are not working in asbestos factory. And we follow them over a certain period, say years, until they retire. And then we find the incidence of disease, asbestosis or cancer in them. I hope you understand what I'm saying. In a cohort study, you select a group of people who are exposed to something, and you select another group who are not exposed, and you study them over a period of time, and then you find the incidence of the disease in them. The advantages is that there's less bias, and it's useful for common diseases. And you can also assess the outcome. But the disadvantage is that it's expensive, most difficult logistically, and time consuming. Like a cohort, let's take say people who work in hospital.
Excuse me, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Please,
Hello?
some people said yeah.
Are you around?
Yes.
Any questions?
Some people said.
Some people said
they are waiting for you. Yes.
They are what?
They said they've been waiting for a while for you to add to let them in, but
They want to do what?
They want you to let them in.
Pardon, I can't hear you.
They want you to admit them.
I'm not getting it.
Hello, Doc. He means that there are people that need to be admitted to the.
Oh, I thought you have admitted them now.
Yeah.
Labrador department. Okay. So we are on cohort study. And I'm saying that the advantage is that it's less bias. We have treated bias, so you understand what I mean. And then it's useful for common diseases. It can also assess other outcomes. there is an advantage is that it's expensive and most difficult logistically and time consuming. You have to observe over years. In other words, you can say that it is said that people who work in quarries, they develop what we call silicosis. That is fibrosis of the lungs when they grow. So if you want to find out whether it's true, your hypothesis, for instance, will be that those who work in quarries are prone to cancer or silicosis and cancer of the lungs. So you select about, say, 10 people who are working in quarries, these Chinese quarries. And then you select 10 people who are working in offices. And you follow them up for a period of, say, 15 to 20 years and see what happens to them. That's what we mean cohort study. And then we have case control study. I hope I'm not confusing you. We have case control study. In a case control study, what we do is we select individuals who have a particular condition or disease, and we select another group who do not have that condition. And then we try to find out the reason why or what is common with those who have that condition. I hope you get me. I'll give you a typical example. You can go to the TB ward and select 10 TB or TB OPD and select 10 patients with TB. And then you go to OPD and select people without TB, 10 people. And then you send them questionnaire. You want to find out their lifestyle, their income, the jobs they do, the room, the house they stay in, and everything. And then find out why. And then you analyze those who have TB. And then you analyze those who don't have. And see whether there's any reason why some people should get TB and others shouldn't get. That's what we call case control. So we call it Why Me? And it investigates the prior exposure of individuals with a particular health condition. Like I said, like say typhoid or TB. And those without that particular condition. And infer why certain subjects, the cases become ill and others, the controls do not. The advantages of this is you can study rare health conditions, diseases that are rare. Then we use this. And then it's quicker, and it's cheaper, and it's easier to conduct. But the disadvantage is that you introduce bias into it. And only one type of disease at a time. And usually used for cancers and other rare diseases. In other words, if you go to, you can go to OPD and list 10 people who say leukemia. And then you take other 10 people without leukemia. And then you set questionnaires. You ask them about where they were born, how they grew up, the type of work they are doing, and so forth. And you select very rare diseases. So at the end, you study these two groups. You may be able to find out that those with leukemia, you can say that maybe they are working at X-ray department in the Kolebu. or they are working on machines in a factory or something like that. And you find out that those without leukemia are farmers, they are fishermen. So you can infer. Okay. So for case control, since subjects are selected on the basis of outcome only, we can evaluate the variety of exposures. In other words, we select people with the disease and those without the disease and compare. Okay, what are the problems in conducting epidemiological studies? One is selection bias. And selection bias occurs when not everybody eligible to be in a study group are selected as subjects. In other words, we have treated what makes a study not very reliable when we talk about bias. So you know what bias is when I talk. The second thing is recall bias. When we say recall bias, people have to remember certain things from past experience, because you ask a question when you were about 12 years old, where were you staying? Or you ask a question about 10 years ago, for the person to recall what happened. You are introducing bias because the person may not remember exactly what happened 10 years ago. So that's what we call recall bias. And then there's another problem we call misclassification. You say you want cancer patients, but you may get cancer patients who have other diseases. So your classification may not be exactly what you want, but you have to take it like that. And then we have confounding variables. Confounding variables means finding association for wrong reason, especially with risk factor and the disease being studied. They can either inflate or deflate the results. That's the confounding variables. That is, you associate something with something which is for a wrong reason. And then statistical variation. And then the choice of sample. The more sample size that you have, the better the test. The less sample size you have, the more questionable will be your results. So if you have large sample size, it's better than if you have very small sample size. Hello, are you there? Hello?
Hello, Doc. We are here. We're listening.
You are there. All right. So you must know the advantages and disadvantages of case control studies. You should be able to describe analytic studies, case control studies, and all that. If you have to do extra reading, you have to. Okay, I think we are running out of time. I think it's okay. Maybe your money is getting finished, so I think we should stop here. I'll send the assignment through either I send it through WhatsApp or through Google School. So if you want, I think I've already sent it to Google School. So those who can, Google Classroom, those who can have access. You answer them and send them to me by Wednesday. As is being told, because you are not going to sit down this term to write exams, I'm going to take your answer and you send it to me by my email. I've added my email. You send your answers to me by Wednesday and you'll be giving some marks. You'll be doing 3 such assignments. And I think they said we should do 3 to 5, but I think 3 is okay. And then we'll find that is what we are going to use to grade you this semester. So you must take it seriously. And also seriously, those who haven't paid any school fees at all, if you send it to me, it will not be marked until I find out from Big Ben. And Big Ben tells me that you have paid your school fees. And if it's not marked, it means you have to repeat level 200. So all the fees you have paid already in first term is useless if you don't pay your second term. So I hope you are all taking it seriously. Any questions?
Sir.
Hello?
We don't use slides.
Pardon? Oh, your line is not clear at all. What's happening?
We don't give
So
slides.
when is the deadline for the payment of fees?
You should have paid by now. So, the term is coming to an end. I think it's coming to an end by July or so, somewhere next month. So by now you should have paid. The trouble is that in the long run you will pay. So there's no reason why you should.
William Esuman, can you please mute your microphone? You are giving us feedback.
Yeah, somebody's microscope is, yeah. So I think Big Ben, if you want to find out, you should find out from Big Ben, but you have to go and pay your school fees. Otherwise, if at the end of this semester, second semester, you don't have marks for second semester, you cannot be promoted. Therefore, you have to repeat level 200. So the school fees you paid for level 100 becomes useless. So you must advise yourself. This is a decision taken from KNUST down. Any other question? Okay, I think we can call it off now. Have a nice day.
No.
All right, Doc, you too. Thank you.
I will expect answers on my email by Wednesday.
All right, Doc, can you send either the assignment or give me the link to the Google Classroom?
I'll give you later.
Okay.
Maybe tomorrow I'll give you.
All right, Doc. When is the deadline for submission?
So I'll send it to your email.
That's fine.
You can put it on your this thing for everybody.
That's fine.
Yeah. By tomorrow I'll do it.
All right, Doc.
But I already sent it to you. I'm not sure of the.
Okay.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, please. Is
Bye.
there not a slide for topic?
No.
No slides.
No.
Oh, what I say?
But you've recorded everything. Why should you get slides? Recording is better than slides.
The recording.
Yes. It's all that we've done that I've set questions on them. But you have to use your brains a little to solve them.
The
For
brain.
slides, you copy the same thing. For slides. But this one, you have to sit down and think a little. There are some questions you have to tell whether it is cohort. I've given some problems. You say whether it's cohort, whether it's whatever it is, what type of study it is. Not very difficult. And next week we shall go into measurement of disease frequency, and then I'll set a question on that. In other words, the rates, incidence, and prevalence and death rate and all that. That will be next week. Okay, have a nice day.